Our off-road build team grows by 10 as these students finish and race in our Xtreme Formula Toy Challenge. Will they pass or fail their final exam? Find out today on Xtreme 4x4.
Welcome to Xtreme 4x4, and if you recognize where we are, either you went to school here,
or you were watching a few weeks ago when we started building this Formula Toy rock buggy that we're calling the Wyo Crawler. It's a funny name. But instead of Jessi and I building this truck ourselves, we chose 24 of WyoTech's top students.
These guys were well into their semester of chassis fabrication, so the skills they learned over the last 10 weeks were immediately put to the test. First, Camo from Pirate 4x4 brought in champion Lisa Linker's rig to show them what they were building.
They started with a stock 1982 Toyota pickup, stripped it bare, and started the build. Then it all began with a Hendrix Motorsports chassis and an LC Engineering 22R engine.
Our brave group took on the task of building one of the first ever Toyota automatic transmission to twin gear driven transfer cases using Inchworm's doubler kit. Plus they installed advanced adapters reduction housing and trail tamer gears.
The entire drivetrain was then dropped into the frame, and at either end the students rebuilt 2 Toyota diffs with Detroit lockers, superior gears, and of course Poly Performance axles and berths.
Then we had a rolling chassis with Walker Evans beadlock wheels and Pro Comp X-Terrain tires, all sitting on all-pro off-road springs and shackle kits.
After checking the flexibility of our new crawler, it was pushed into a place of honor in the lobby of WyoTech's campus.
And now we're back with 9 new students and 1 veteran to finish this thing off and have it on the rocks by the end of the show.
The first thing we have to do to this truck is the steering, and Matt and Brandon are going to take us on. Come on in, guys, I'll show what we got. Now, we got a high steer kit from All Pro Off-Road. It comes with heavy-duty links and new upper arms to move the crossover bar and tie rod from the bottom side of the leaf spring to the top, as you know. But the one that makes this kit a little bit different is we're going to be using this Scout box mounted on the outside of the frame rail. Now, we're going to have to install this box, cycle the suspension, and mark the location of this pitman arm. Then we got to take that steering box and ship it down to Howe Performance Steering, because they're going to install internal stops in that box to match the hydraulic assist that they basically are building just for this truck. That's sort of what they do. They match it specific to each vehicle. So right now you get to install all these parts and then take it all back apart. Once the box is mounted and the links are connected, Brandon will cycle the steering from side to side and mark the location of the pitman arm. Then Matt can measure the distance the ram will be traveling. Then we can take all this information, box up the steering box, and send it off to Howe's.
All right, while those guys are finishing up the steering, you guys are going to be plumbing this, right?
All right.
Okay, all starts with this Jazz fuel cell that we got. And then we're going to be using these steel braided lines and these fuel fittings that we got from Russell. And then you can go ahead and run these flex braided lines that we got from Crown Performance, and you can measure for all your hard lines for the brakes. Cool? All right, let's get this in there. Make sure it's in center and it's not getting in the way of anything. A fuel cell is required to compete in most rock crawling competitions. The nice thing about a plastic cell is that it can take some abuse on the trail and bounce back. If this truck had an electric fuel pump, we would use high pressure AN fittings, but LC Engineering suggested using the stock mechanical pump, which would be just fine using worm gear clamps.
With fuel getting to the engine up here, we can start to concentrate on the exhaust. Now our LC Engineering motor came with its full-length header, and with the assistance of this Super 40 muffler from Flowmaster and a couple of pieces from their Universal tailpipe kit, this motor is gonna breathe. Okay. Ready? That's good right there. Tuck that in.
Before we can breathe life into this engine, we need to have ignition. So we're gonna be installing this Crane Fireball ignition system. It comes with a high power ignition box, coil, and wires. And Dragos here is gonna fabricate up a mounting plate so we can get all of this mounted, right?
Alrighty.
Cool, if you need anything, holler. All right.
Up next, the Formula toy build continues, culminating in this, a trip to the rocks to see who's got the right stuff to be crowned champion. Stay tuned.
Go, go, go. Welcome back to Xtreme 4x4. As you can see, the students have really started to tear into part 2 of the Formula toy build.
Oh yeah, it's not gonna be long before we can fuel it up and take it for a spin. Don't tell any of the instructors, but I think we're gonna put her up a wall.
Now, the last time we were here, it wasn't all work and no play either.
Have you ever seen anything like this? These are front-wheel drive clip cars that the school uses to teach engine troubleshooting. They're also great for TV hosts to make complete fools of themselves in.
That's like rock crawling. We need to build one of these.
Hey, your car is much cooler than mine.
What? Look at this car. What's cooler? The fender? Your car's cooler.
It's black.
It's got much more curb appeal. Oh! Airbag.
Now we are supposed to tell you that.
The WildTech official policy is that clip cars are for instructional purposes only. Students are permitted to troubleshoot, diagnose, and repair these vehicles only and are prohibited from driving them in any manner.
But for TV hosts, anything goes. Just kidding. It's always nice to have suspension seats in your rig, and we got this set from PRPC. It comes fully equipped with a steel welded frame, webbing, and it's got these cool little pouches for your camelback, so when you get thirsty, you always have something to drink. I'm gonna put those in. And then to keep us in, we're gonna be using these SFI comp certified 5-point harnesses that we got from DJ Safety. Dragos has already got some of the mounts in, right? Wanna tell us about it?
All right. Right here, if you can see, I did a drill and tap, and then I inserted the eye bolts. I welded them in for extra durability, as well as you can strap it in, ready to go.
All right, probably the biggest job, time-consuming wise, on this project is going to be wiring this thing. Now, it's not as hard as wiring an actual complete car because it's just a buggy, but there are some stuff that we are going to have to address when we put this thing together. Like we're going to have to power up electric fan for the radiator. We obviously have the electric fan on top of our Hayden transmission cooler. We got some rock lights from Round Eyes, and we need to be able to switch all this. So we went ahead and ordered a custom panel from 12-volt guy. Now this panel will just fit in our dash and has these aircraft switches that's going to allow us to run the winch from inside the cab. We have 2 switches to run our rock lights, one just for fun, an ignition and a start, and you can order this panel with any number of switches and pretty much any number of stickers or design a sticker that you want. He'll even do some custom ones for it if you want. Now, when we last left this truck here, it was looking really good. Like the last group did a really good job on it, and it was starting to turn into a showcase for your school. So when it came to gauges, we decided that we'd step up a little bit, and we actually picked these Autometer C2 gauges, and you started building this great center console for them. We just got 3 simple gauges. We got a water and a volt and an oil pressure, because that's pretty much all we need to monitor on this engine. And then of course we got the big monster tack. Now the coolest thing about these is how they light up, considering everything on this buggy has been blue and silver, and since the cool colors are kind of blue, they light up with that blue killer LED. That's why we picked them. Is that cool or what?
That's awesome.
All right. So do you guys have any questions about how we're going to tackle this thing or anything?
I was wondering where we were going to decide to put the transmission cooler.
Well, it's actually a good question, because if it's like a street rod or something, you'd put this right up front, like right in front of the radiator to get a lot of airflow. But on something like this, we'll probably mount it as close to the transmission as we can and just up at a harm's way, just above the frame rail. And that's why we get these ones with these little integrated fans. That's normally what we always install. So it doesn't really matter where you install it, it's always going to get airflow. Andrew will go ahead and finish welding the gauge panel. Then he and Thomas will tack it to the chassis where everything can get wired up.
and I noticed throughout both phases of this build is the personal pride these students are putting into the task at hand. As we showed you in part 1, this is not a rig just slapped together.
These guys are taking their time, not taking shortcuts. They know that going the extra mile on our project could not only earn them a good grade in chassis fabrication, but maybe help them land a decent job upon graduation.
Competition crawlers use winches in a different way, and this Ramsey X 6000 has a 3-stage planetary motor and an automatic load holding feature. So we'll hook it up to our axle so we can compress our suspension, giving us better approach and departure angles. Plus, this winch has a remote function, and as soon as we get that finished, we can go ahead and get it mounted.
We're back on Xtreme from the campus of Wyotech in Sacramento, California.
That one wasn't in all the way.
Where these students are in the final phase of our Formula Toy rock crawler build.
With the modified Scout 2 power steering box back from Howe Performance, we can mount it to the frame.
We're using a Borgeson U-joint and solid 3/4-inch steel rod with a Moroso quick wheel disconnect. We'll mount the power steering reservoir so it's the highest part in the hydraulic system, preventing any air pockets.
With the cylinder positioned on the axle, it can be welded to the All-Pro crossover steering rod. Brandon will fab up a bracket for our Howe steering micro pump, then bolt it to the motor and hook up all the lines.
This is Tom Argier. He's working on our square drive shafts. You want to tell us how it's going?
It's going great, Jessi. Just got finished welding the square tubing to the U-joint. We had to grind off some material off of this U-joint shaft, as well as this one. Grind off some of there so we could fit this square tubing over it. And then we put the two together, and we got slip.
Look at all that travel. See, and that's a benefit of having square drive shafts, because you get that extra movement, which you really need on a competition crawler. Plus, they're really cheap to make, and they're super easy to rebuild. Now, they're ready to go, right?
They're ready to go.
Let's put them in.
Let's do it.
All right, here it goes. You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks good. I like the expanded metal and the dash. It's small. It fits. It's perfect, man.
Yeah, everything went exactly to plan. Hides all these wires so you don't have to see anything, and centers everything towards the driver. So
It's good, man. It looks good too. That's just as important. All right.
Cool.
Good job, man.
Thank you.
Now, a lot of late nights and a lot of cold pizza, you really get to know the people you're working with. This guy right here is Matt Barton, but we don't call him that. We got a nickname for him. We call him Mr. Incredible, because who do you think he looks like?
Heard that a few times.
And what have you been working on up here, Matt?
I've been working on this skid plate here to protect the front and the radiator.
I love the speed holes, man. Signature piece.
Thank you.
Now, what else you got?
We got a brake pedal over here for the driver compartment.
So what did you start with on this?
Well, I started this with this hold-up return spring and this double needle bearing pillow block.
And then you build all the rest?
Yeah, and I made it right here to fit underneath the dash bar.
Show me. Oh, that's sweet.
Thank you.
That fits great, man.
I'm so tired. Every muscle in my body hurts.
I think it's gonna go a long way, hopefully. No, it should. We put a lot of effort into this truck. Lots.
It's crunch time, everybody's tired, and it's so easy just to overlook something minor, ground straps, Teflon tape, hose clamps being tight, you know, and that's all things that come back in the end and bite you, you know, as far as having ignition problems or a leak that you can't quite find, and bad oil pressure. It's just right now, not quite slow down, but just step back and make sure you're really not missing anything important.
Hey, Jessi.
What?
There's a bet going on.
About what?
About who's the first one to roll the crawler over.
Ooh,
who's
I put
winning.
my money that it might be you.
I'm not gonna try and roll it over.
No?
Where are we at? I'm putting this wheel on, and then we're gonna roll it over, make sure we got fuel, and then we're gonna see if it starts. And if it doesn't start, we'll make it start.
Not only will it start, watch the Formula toy make its inaugural run when Xtreme 4x4 continues.
Now it's time to gas.
You wide open? Give me a little bit of starter action there, Mr. Pena. Now let's kick it back down and see what happens.
Well, we finally made it and wasted no time getting to Prairie City OHV outside Sacramento.
Here, We Rock CEO Rich Klein set up a course for our students. And here's the fruit of their labor, the latest buggy in the Formula Toy class.
After Ian and I took it on a little shakedown run, it was the students' turn.
With 5 teams of 2, a coin flip determined the driver and the spotter.
First up, spotter Andrew, with Kevin behind the wheel.
Come all the way towards me. Keep going, give it some gas. Right on. We got,
Ooh, those mistakes will cost them.
Okay, Kevin, on your score through the course there, you have a maximum of 10 minutes to make the course. If you don't make it within 10 minutes, you get 40 points, which is a maximum score for attempting, minus 1 point for each cone. We call those progression points. You guys ended up with 10 minutes and 10 seconds, but you got 4 progression points taken off of that 40, so you're at 36 points.
Next, Michael and Brandon.
Come on.
Not only did they run out of time, big penalties for spilling coolant because of an overheated motor.
Nader and Jeremy didn't get very far and were DQ'd for having to get winched off the course.
Pena and Argier didn't fare much better. The last boulder turned out to be the hardest obstacle for all the teams, except one.
Spotter Dragos and Mr. Incredible worked as a team, chose their own line to make it over the hump.
Woo, we're done. Number 1.
So with that 11 and then minus the 4, you have a total of 7 points. Excellent.
Thank you, 7.
Good job!
It started with a plan and some parts, and after 180 hours of hard labor,
We had an amazing buggy and some victors of the trail.
but in the end, all were winners in our extreme WildTech experience.
You guys are